Okay. All right. Well, good morning and welcome to Unity of Springfield, this beautiful first Sunday of spring. It's so nice out. It's such a nice time. And a special welcome to those who follow us online and now or later on. And I really do love this time of year. It's time to get your dirt in your fingernails and start gardening. And Jeannie and I, we both enjoy growing plants, both for the beauty and the nourishment. And living in Humansville, there's a fair amount of farm animals around near our house. And after some thought, Jeannie announced the other day, our yard is now chicken-proof. And I said, really? She smiled and said, yep, it's impeccable. So, let's see. Let's turn this on. Oh, here we go. So here we are on our own individual journeys, all 7 or 8 billion of us. Even when we see a clear path, it's only worn because we have walked it many times before. Or many of us have been drawn to similar vibrational matches and have collectively created a path for today. Because in a blink of an eye, an epiphany can occur and the path just disappears, or a new one emerges. For me, and often an epiphany or a motivation to start walking in a specific direction, or even the idea that there is a choice, begins with experiencing some suffering or pain and wanting to experience something different. For me, as a preteen, I was aware of self-loathing thoughts that had been and being disoriented by living in a family where serious mental illness was occurring, and there wasn't any way to really talk about it, not at home, at school, and the stigma was real. The thoughts that I had created severe guilt and shame that I would wish death upon one of my own family members. I didn't even know where these thoughts were coming from until many years later. There were no words that I knew to talk about it, and it was a few years before I met people who I could converse with and get to talk about it. The desire to feel better, paired with an experience I can only describe as grace or an angel experience, started me on a path about being curious about everything and wanting to help ameliorate pain. While I was on my way to end my life, a young man and his German shepherd interrupted my self-destructive journey. He began sharing a joyful expectation and hope with such a high vibration that the thought of ending my life just seemed so absurd. And since then, I've never even had a thought about wanting to take my own life. Today, I want to encourage you to stop, listen, and observe, and wait to notice what your current path appears to be. How do you feel about it? Is it where you want to go? What previous epiphanies or peak moments or crises provoked change that you can recall? Did they propel you in a desired path? I know for me, I didn't always go on the right paths early on. But I did have some understanding of why I was going where I was going. And there is no right or wrong path. Just notice what it seems if it's what you want. As was alluded to last week when Paul spoke, we're not trapped by any institutional theocrats that tell us what to believe. Even within New Thought, in the early days, there was a separation that occurred between Christian Science practitioners and the Fillmores about whether or not they were going to follow the dogma that the Christian Science folks had. And there was a feeling that, no, this is more of an evolutionary type of a spiritual growth, and they couldn't be held into those. So we come from a spiritual framework that allows us to change and grow and move as we need. So to provide some framework about today's topics, I decided that looking at mind, body, and spirit, that I would look at it in terms of compassion, gratitude, and forgiveness as being superpowers or magical powers. And the compassion going with thought, gratitude with feeling, forgiveness spiritual. Now, there's a synergy between these. So it's not one goes first, and it's not directly mind, body, spirit. They're all synergistically going to, I just separate them just to organize them in my mind, to give some. But if it doesn't work for you, don't use that. The synergy includes the compassion builds bridges, gratitude amplifies the joy and abundance in us, and forgiveness clears the emotional roadblocks that prevent us from moving forward. Together they form a cycle of healing and regeneration, nurturing the mind, heart, and soul. And I found that this morning, actually, under the World Happiness Foundation, while I was working on the meditation. A fellow, Luis Miguel Gardo, had written that. So the whole idea, compassion, is based on the keen awareness of interdependence, that we're not separate. And it's an acknowledgement of someone or something else's pain and or suffering, and then responding in a way that we want to have a desire, a hope, or a plan of action to alleviate suffering of the other person or ourselves when we notice it in ourselves. And Buddhism, the Toltec tradition, and modern psychology all noticed the importance of self-compassion in being able to practice compassion. So in order to sit and be aware of pain, including our own pain, we must be willing to become vulnerable. Brene Brown's Braving the Wilderness, she writes, "The definition of vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. But vulnerability is not a weakness. It's our most accurate measure of courage." One helpful fact that I found with vulnerability and courage that I use when I become aware of pain in myself or in other people is that I have a choice, the choice not to judge. Okay? Don't have to have a good guy, bad guy right off the bat. And if I do, I try to let go of that quickly. And I search for a right action or choices to choose love in some way, whatever seems to present itself to me. And I kind of support that in that I'm not privy to everything that's going on. I don't know all the background information. And that allows me to wait and not have to rush to judgment. Affirmative prayer may help to create mental guideposts for a compassionate path. An example is, I'll do my best I'll be my best self by just seeing and hearing that person with an open heart, without any opinion about how people behaved. Hopefully, this creates space another person can use. As a meditative practice, this approach can be directed to ourselves. Journaling can also help us to insights of our habitual thoughts, as well as to desires that we've been hiding behind in the clutter of everyday life. Deep listening, that Jerry alluded to in his talk recently, is a practice of being fully present with another, of ourself without agenda, not trying to fix, just being there as an embodiment of unconditional regard. With one's attention and all of our senses that are available to us to attend to that person. And these practices all create space for compassion to well up inside of us so we can see that vibrate out. Gratitude. The second magical practice is gratitude. And I chose to put gratitude in the body because it feels so darn good. It's a transformational practice that can quickly change how we feel without doing anything to change our circumstances. And because of it, our circumstances change. It's so odd. And they usually change for the better. Being grateful, thankful, being in our blessing, it requires our mind to practice it daily and set an intention. And when it is practiced, that bliss and joy that arise, for me anyways, is so palpable in the body as in the emotion. I intentionally receive a gratitude quote each day on my phone. And usually I'll read it while I'm taking my supplements in the morning, drinking my morning cup of joe. But it doesn't stop there. I notice with the breath, the coming day, the possibilities, the life I've been entrusted with, and the knowing of being beloved. It seems to require a frequent stop and remember habit to recall how blessed we are. And it's really worth it. A yoga practice is another example of an opportunity to deepen a gratitude practice, and it gets where that yoke of that mind and body, and it can be very helpful. And gratitude certainly is a self-compassionate practice. In addition to the gratitude practice, other care for the body is very important for ourselves and for our brethren. We need nourishment and water. I just recently realized I'm not drinking enough water, and I really need to pay attention to that. We need sleep. We need shelter. And part of what we do here at Unity of Springfield, where we're attending to some folks' needs in the community who don't have some of those basic needs, and it makes us really aware and wells that compassion, that desire to do something. The other thing that the body really needs is to move about to the best of our ability. The more, if we're not moving, then we start to recede physically. And it can be very harmful. And at the same time, movement is really important to both of our nervous systems. So our two nervous systems are what? Our brain and our heart. And they both, heart health and brain health, are both very related to exercise. So how we choose in terms of moving and doing something, whatever that area, that ability is for ourselves is very important. The third magical practice is sustained acceptance and forgiveness. I chose to place the forgiveness in the spirit realm as it releases spiritual healing to the universe as we know it. The letting go of negative emotions and thoughts about ourselves and others lets us relax in the vortex. Sustained acceptance is when we choose not to judge in the first place. Our intuition clarifies, our choice is understood, and love then becomes the obvious choice. Language is a complex and confusing medium when we're talking about forgiveness. So I want to clarify a few things. Forgiveness does not mean we're letting ourselves or the other entity off the responsibility hook. Nor does it mean that we condone or endorse a behavior or a belief that is just a repetitive behavior. It is letting yourself off the judgment hook. So when we forgive, we're letting ourselves off the hook that we have to judge something, somebody, or ourselves. Another vivid epiphany I had occurred in 1987 when I listened to a homily presented by Father Ray O'Connor at Sacred Heart Church in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. He presented a how-to functional definition of forgiveness. And it goes like this. He says, to accept that person, the pleasant parts that you like, and the other parts that you don't like so much. No strings attached. In other words, you don't take it back. It's eternal. Now, it's not so easy. First of all, when we attempt to accept another person in total, we make it easier when we're in a state of self-acceptance. So this practice is simultaneous. So when we're trying to forgive somebody else, we need to pay attention to the inside job about where are we with ourselves and coming to a place of acceptance of who we are. And think about this whole thing about acceptance. It's really insane not to accept what is. I mean, so another person they are who they are. They did what they did. And to say, I can't accept this, that's going to create some harm inside of you. It just is what it is. Another hack that makes it easier for me is the ongoing practice of awareness of judgment that goes on in our lives, because we get a lot of judgment messages. And again, to clarify language again for the purposes, the word judgment means an opinion as to whether something or someone is good or bad or right or wrong. So it's an opinion. Okay. Opinion versus event. Commentary versus what happened. Peanut gallery versus play-by-play. So being aware of the judgment on social media, our families, our internal dialogue, recognizing I said, oh, that was a judgment. I can just let that go out of my replay of automatic thoughts. One practice that I did one time was to take a pad of paper, you can also use any kind of way of counting, I took a period of 4 hours and I counted every judgmental thought that came into my mind and just put little X's. And it blew me away. It was like, whoa, get a handle, buddy. And then here's the thing. In order to let go of judging, don't judge your judging. Okay, now this is, let's see. What? Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. Because when I wrote this, I really put too much focus on organizing which line, how they were lined up, mind, body, and spirit. Because the more I got into it, the more I realized how synergistically and interrelated it all is. And so from Don Miguel Ruiz's book, Mastery of Love, love has no obligations, love has no resistance, love has no expectations, love is based on respect, love is ruthless, no pity. Love is responsible, love is kind, love is conditional, and compassion comes from respect and love. I'm sorry, love is unconditional, yes. So the one that caught me was love is ruthless. And we talked about this a little bit in adult education earlier this morning. So the whole point is that we're not going to say that the person is out of sync with the endless possibilities, that they can grow and handle themselves. So it's not very loving to go, poor them, poor you, or to ourselves to say, poor me. Because when we do that, we're taking away possibilities that it's going to go right, that we're moving in the right direction, that we can access love. He also wrote that love is the medicine that accelerates the process of healing. Okay. Now, I'd like to do a short meditation here to close out. Find a comfortable position. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Take a few breaths in through your nose and then let go of the exhale as a sigh. Notice your body's contact with your chair and with the floor. Bring your focus to yourself, to the space just above the bridge of your nose and centered. Now pay attention to your heart space. Now create a connection between that third eye and the heart space. Breathe courage in through your nose. And exhale the pain and suffering that you may perceive. Inhale understanding. And exhale kindness through you and beyond. Now breathe in the sweet taste of the freedom we find in forgiveness. And breathe out the release of harmful emotions and harmful actions. With the understanding that we would not experience the transformation we have without having the courage and grace to be here, now, in love and connection. as we start to return to this room here at Unity of Springfield, let us open our eyes, being grateful we are sharing a compassionate community where transformation is encouraged and supported. Thank you.